Write every day, line by line, page by page, hour by hour. Do this despite fear, for above all else, beyond imagination and skill, what the world asks of you is courage. Courage to risk rejection, ridicule, and failure. As you follow the quest for stories told with meaning and beauty, study thoughtfully but write boldly. Then, like the hero of the fable, your dance will dazzle the world. Robert McKee. Mr. McKee is the most sought after screenwriting teacher in the world. He has dedicated the last 40 years to educating and mentoring screenwriters, novelists, playwrights, poets, documentary makers, producers, and directors internationally. He is known as the Aristotle of our time and the master of story. He is also the author of the book I want to talk about today, Story. Robert McKee is a man that has truly changed me for the last few weeks. His book, Story, has altered my view in writing for the better. In a moment of vast emptiness in my career as an artist, I felt that creativity light bulb spark once again within me. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Everyone must be talking about this book and I haven't even realized. The following disappointment was a product of the lack of discussion and praise towards this book. How is this possible? I questioned. How can such an important book exist and not generate never-ending conversations surrounding it on the internet? What I found were mostly old videos with a less than adequate amount of views and comments. I cannot express how much I want this book to be talked more about. That is why I'm making this video. If I can convince at least another beginner writer like me to read it, that will bring me immense happiness. I guarantee this book will shift your perspective on the art of writing as a whole. Now, if you're a writer who feels stumped, anxious, directionless, and can't even conceive where to start, this is for you. That is exactly how I felt before experiencing what Mr. McKee had to offer. Before that, I was drowning in YouTube videos, internet articles that I thought were great advice, and if I just kept seeing more and more, I would eventually know where to start. As you can probably tell, I was wrong. I was very stubborn and it was all for naught. At the end, I just had a bunch of abstract ideas and writing tips that sounded extremely useful and something to keep in mind, but I had nowhere to apply them. I didn't know a single thing, a single principle about story. That is when this magnificent book came in. Like a father helping his child ride a bike for the first time, Mr. McKee gave me a sense on where to start, what works and what doesn't work, and much, much more. So, what is Story about? In the book's introduction, Mr. McKee gives us 8 key phrases that tell us what the book is all about. A rule says you must do it this way. A principle says this works and has through all remembered time. The difference is crucial. If stories abided by specific rules, then I believe all of them would be the same at their core. We would all be modeling our work after a certain well-made story, limiting ourselves to tell the same tale over and over with little to no change at all. Fortunately, we follow principles, not rules. There is no external hand forcing us to write our certain stories a certain way. No, principles simply tell us how stories work and always have. Our stories must be well made with these principles. Anxious, inexperienced writers obey rules. Rebellious, unschooled writers break rules. Artists master the form. Just like how stories aren't about rules, neither are they about formulas. If there were specific story formulas, then the world would have grown tired of hearing the same story over and over again. We would roll our eyes thinking, this will happen again. No, stories are about mastering forms. These forms will allow us to create timeless works that will be enjoyed by people all throughout the globe. No matter where a film is made, Hollywood, Paris, Hong Kong, if it's of archetypal quality, It triggers a global and perpetual chain reaction of pleasure that carries it from cinema to cinema, generation to generation. Archetypes are based on universal patterns in human nature that create an immediate sense of familiarity. Without having to wonder why we recognize it, we relate to these archetypes. Because they are universal, they are understood to any person around the globe. They can then wrap themselves inside a unique culture-specific expression. An archetypal story creates settings and characters so rare that our eyes feast on every detail, while its telling illuminates conflicts so true to humankind that it journeys from culture to culture. Stereotypes, on the other hand, do the opposite of this. While archetypes are recognized patterns in human behavior, stereotypes are generalizations. Instead of using traits to develop into something more, they never grow out of their basic characteristics and become overly simplistic. Stereotypes confine themselves to a narrow, culture-specific expression and dresses in stale, non-specific generalities. Stereotypical stories stay at home. Archetypal stories travel. It takes patience and perseverance to craft a well-written story. This keynote is short and sweet, but I would like to share an excellent point Mr. McKee makes here. From inspiration to a last draft, you may need as much time to write a screenplay as to write a novel. While scribble maniacs fill pages as fast as they can type, film writers cut and cut again, ruthless in their desire to express the absolute maximum in the fewest possible words. I think this is something worth highlighting because Story is primarily a screenwriting book. However, I believe it is useful for any writer. I myself am an aspiring game writer and I found this book enlightening. There's been no conspiracy to keep secret the truths of art. In the 23 centuries Aristotle wrote the Poetics, the secrets of story have been as public as the library down the street. Storytelling isn't difficult to understand, but don't be deceived by how easy it looks at first glance. You must learn to know what you're doing, because as the audience analyzes your story from a closer view, they will identify its faults. Crafting a concise story takes determination, study, and mastering of the craft. Screenwriting is full of wonders, but no unsolvable mysteries. I believe Mr. McKee delivers a perfect and comprehensible explanation for this point. No one can teach you what will sell, what won't, what will be a smash or a fiasco, because no one knows. Rather than agonizing over the odds, put your energies into achieving excellence. Secure writers don't sell first drafts. They patiently rewrite until the script is as director ready, as actor ready as possible. Unfinished work invites tampering, while polished, mature work seals its integrity. When talented people write badly, it's generally for one of two reasons. Either they are blinded by an idea they feel compelled to prove, or they're driven by an emotion they much express. When talented people write well, it is generally for this reason. They're moved by a desire to touch the audience. I love the way Mr. McKee says that when we plunge our minds into a story, we open our emotions to the storyteller, leaving ourselves vulnerable to experience honest feelings of laughter, tears, terror, rage, compassion, passion, love, hate, and much more. Simultaneously, our IQ somehow spikes up by 25 points. We somehow feel that we know the characters, know the ending before it happens, and feel like we've seen these stories before. The audience is not only smart, it's smarter than most films, and that fact won't change when you move to the other side of the screen. Storytellers have to shape their stories in a way that satisfies the audience's desires. Desire to see what the characters will do, the desire for the story to have a satisfying conclusion, the desire to be filled with emotion, and much more. The audience is a force to as determining of story design as any other element, for without it, the creative act is pointless. Originality is the influence of content and form distinctive choices of subject plus a unique shaping of the telling. Content, setting, characters, and ideas, and form, selection and arrangement of events, require, inspire, and mutually influence one another. Content and form are, in a way, two beings in one body, the story. If one is sick, the other will be as well. If content is cliché, telling will be cliché. If telling is conventional and predictable, content will be demanded to be stereotypical and in consequence limited. However, if your story design is creative, then the content must also be as innovative. We shape the telling to fit the substance, rework the substance to support the design. Mr. McKee also warns us not to be different for the sake of being different. Being different for the sake of it is not eccentric, nor is it any better than following commercial imperatives. It is just a weak cry for attention to exhibit a work with little to no innovation. Mature artists never call attention to themselves. Wise artists never do anything just because it breaks convention. An artist's work is like their child. They are made of the same blood as their parent. A master's work will be so unique that you'll be able to recognize them with little difficulty. Great screenwriters are distinguished by a personal storytelling style, a style that's not only inseparable from their vision, but in a profound way is their vision. Master storytellers are not only original in their characters, setting, and ideas, but in the way they select and arrange the events of their story. Mr. McKee closes the introduction with this beautiful message. But my hope for you goes beyond competence and skill. I'm starved for great films. Over the last 2 decades, I've seen good films, and few very good films, but rarely a film staggering power and beauty. Maybe it's me, maybe I'm jaded, but I don't think so, not yet. I still believe that art transforms lives, but I know if you can play all the instruments in an orchestra of story, no matter what music may be in your imagination, you're condemned to hum the same old tune. I've written story to empower your command of the craft, to free you to express an original vision of life, to lift your talent beyond convention to create films of distinctive substance, structure, and style. Story was written all the way back in 1997, but its lessons are still relevant to this day. In an era when the demand for not just original but innovative stories are in need, this book is what we aspiring artists need. Where you are or when you are from shouldn't matter, for great storytelling is universal and timeless. Mastering the craft takes practice, of course. However, just like you shouldn't drive a car without learning how to, we shouldn't just start writing stories before we grasp its principles. I plead you to find the time and the will to read this book. Learn from it. Write stories. Master the craft. This is the first video. Yeah, obviously there's no other videos on my channel. Although this wasn't technically the first video, there's been other videos that I deleted, right? And I always since 6 months ago, I've been planning to release my first video. First, it was like a knockoff of another video, which I actually I had half done. It was full animation. But then I thought it was, a bad idea because I was knocking off someone else, So I just said, this is screwed up. So I just have it there because I really did work on it a lot, and I'm proud of the animation I did there, but the format was not original, so it's just there. um, and then I wanted to do another video of another book, but it wasn't very good, and honestly the format wasn't great. But then I planned this video, and it just came from the heart, because I finished reading the story just a few days ago, and I mean I know I made a script and all, it's obvious, but it really did change me. It really did. And I googled story and I searched on YouTube, but there really isn't much discussion about this book. There isn't much. There's some videos, yes, I in some podcasts, but and I mean Mr. McKee has a great YouTube channel, but there isn't much discussion about this book, and I just want to let other people know. Please read this book. It's amazing, genuinely. I know it's long, and I know not many people have the time to read books nowadays. Maybe you have a job, maybe you're in school, but I swear, I promise, I pinky promise, it's worth it. So, if you find time, please read the book. And I guess I'll see you next time. See ya.